thank for the invitation, Armina and Harve, and for having me here today. I'm very glad to give this presentation on different types of manifestation of anti-Muslim hatred and Islamophobia, and the securitization of the Muslims in Europe. Okay, I will introduce them myself because we didn't manage to do this until now. So I'm someone who is coming from the political science, but my focus is Islamic studies. More concretely, I'm dealing with Islamic movements, or let's say the social movement theory, and in the context of different types of Islamic activism. And also beside that, I'm dealing with Islamophobia and anti-Muslim hatred, and the different manifestations of those two phenomena. And also, but what I want to also maybe to just emphasize that I'm not someone who is coming from some kind of a security studies, or I'm not dealing directly with securitization from this perspective of security studies, but I'm dealing with securitization from this, let's say, more from this perspective of Islam is anti-Muslim hatred and Islamophobia. And in the very beginning, also, I would like to maybe emphasize for those who are present today and maybe it can be interesting or useful for everyone, is that I'm not only, and because I got this program and other speakers who will give the lectures, and maybe my particular, what is particular about me comparing to other speakers, or let's say majority of them, is that I'm not only dealing with I'm not only coming from the academia when I'm dealing with this topic, but I'm also someone who is a lot for years, or let's say decade or even more, I'm dealing with the Muslim activism on various level, on the grassroots level of the Muslim with the Muslim activism, and I literally went from Great Britain to Macedonia, and from Finland to Portugal, and visited all possible Muslim communities and had some interactions with them and work with them, and we do definitely with different types of the Muslim organization and Islamic organizations. So yeah, maybe if so everyone can maybe find this information useful if someone has the questions in that regard, or let's say if someone is interested in the Muslim activism and Islamic activism, or different types of Islamic activism, we can touch upon also this in some moment during our presentation. Also, I would like really to invite everyone that is not some kind of ex cathedra, or I don't know, that I'm just talking, but if that this is much more, that we can position this as some kind of discussion, or let's say exchange of opinions, and so on and so on. So now I will start with this lecture, or let's say my presentation. First of all, I decided not to go with the PowerPoint, because I think when we are already on this Zoom thing, that it is a little bit more alienated, but we don't have even when I'm having this PowerPoint presentation. So I will send the PowerPoint presentation. I have it, but I will send it to everyone who is interested. But now I will just give my presentation like this, and of course I will share some of the data and so on. I share my screen, and you will be able to see everything on your screens when I'm sharing it. So I don't know if you take a look with to the materials that I have sent to Armina, and I will start definitely from the paper that I sent from Iran Ahmad about the domophilia, and where he's questioning what is the common thing, or let's say, is there anything in common for different actors who are promoting the anti-Muslim narratives, stereotypes, hatred, or Islamophobia. And he's, you know, concluding one of his concluding remarks of his paper is that basically every single articulation of Islamophobia is in significant ways at the same time also the declaration of love for home, or let's say what he's calling the domophilia. And this is, you know, from my perspective, something that I find to high extent, to high degree, correct definition, and what can we find as a common thing from all the actors that are present in around Europe and who are promoting the anti-Muslim hatred of Islamophobia. Of course, I will now explain why I think that this is proper approach, or let's say proper definition, because and here I'm relying upon, you know, first of all, of this, you know, let's say differentiation between good and bad national identities and nationalisms and the construction of nations. And this is, you know, this good, or let's say, you know, inclusive, open, civic identity versus this, let's say, bad ethnic one. And this is what, you know, Rogers Brubaker, in one the American sociologist, in one of his very good and I find very convincing papers, he declared this as some kind of a false myth, or let's say false dichotomy between this good and bad national, let's say, identities, or let's say national civic identity and ethnic cultural national identity. And in the sense, you know, that both of these civic and ethnic national can be exclusive if they want. And if we are looking today to the, you know, European, let's say, to the Europe, we can see that there are completely different, you know, actors from completely different, you know, starting points, the anti-Islamic narratives, stereotypes, and anti-Islamic hatred. Of course, I think that also beside this, we'll come back. I will come back to this, but also I think that also the common thing, and also, or let's say, the trigger to the phenomenon of Islamophobia, rising, the rising of Islamophobia in Europe, is definitely the question of demography. Okay. And the question, you know, or let's say these projections that are always, you know, circulating about the number of Muslims inside of Europe and in different European countries. So in that sense, I will now share maybe for you who maybe are not too familiar with this data, I will share with you for example, the Pew Research done very good, presented a very good projection regarding the number of Muslims. First, I will now. Am I sharing the screen?
Yes, I think you can. Yes, I think you can.
No, do you see? I already
yes, you can see it now.
Okay, so this is now, you know, this is the Pew Research, and this is from 2016, and this is the Muslim population current in the 2016. What was the situation? And as you can see, you know, the situation already in some of the countries like Sweden, France, Germany, and so on, the number, or Bulgaria, it's 11%, France 8%, and so on. And also these are of course the percentages, but also the numbers in these countries, like for example, France is 5 million or almost 6 million. But by the way, we cannot say this for sure that this is a correct number, because some of the people are even saying that there are more Muslims in France than this. So this is for 2016. Now I will share the projection for 2050. And this is a zero migration scenario, you know, because they've done 3 possible scenarios with the zero migration scenario, medium migration scenario, and high migration scenario. So as you see, now the numbers with zero migration scenarios already, the landscape, let's say the population is changing, rising. In Sweden is rising, in France, in Germany, literally in every country, UK also, and so on and so on. What is interesting, by the way, that in the I don't know if you see now, because I don't see. For example, in some countries, the number is going down, and this is the countries which are, which are, let's say, are not interesting for the migrants. But so this is the medium migration scenario. You can see that now the drastic change in the numbers. So Sweden is, for example, 11, now 20, France 17, and so on. And the fourth one is saying that, if the high migration scenario occurs until 2015, every third citizen, for example, in Sweden will be Muslim. In France, every fifth citizen, and UK also almost every fifth, in Germany as well, Austria as well, and so on and so on. So, this is, and if you are, following the narratives, or let's say the people who are presenting, or let's say exposing these anti-Muslim narratives, they're always focusing heavily on this demographic statistics and this data that, this is some kind of a crippling, Islamization of Europe, or let's say that Europe is heading toward the, that the Muslims will become a significant population in Europe. And of course, in that regard, or let's say in that context, they are problematizing, of course, this, the presence of Muslim presence in Europe on various grounds, and basically most important one is that, the Islam, or the teachings of Islam are not compatible with what is liberal Western European enlightenment, post-enlightenment, and so on values. In that sense, I think that, more or less, especially in the Western Europe, like France, and now I'm coming back to this. To these different narratives, for example, because when we are talking, for example, about the compatibility with Islam in the West, we are now approaching this differentiation, or let's say the different types of narratives. For example, if we are following the line, or let's say if you are listening to what is, I don't know, Geert Wilders, for example, in Holland, or Marine Le Pen saying in France, this is quite different, narratives than, for example, what we have in Poland, for example, or what we have in Hungary, or what we have in the Balkans. I will concretely focus in the end in the Balkans, especially in Serbia, from where I'm coming from. But, for example, if you're listening to, for example, Wilders, or I don't know, as I said, especially him, he's interesting because he's extremely always insisting on the, that the Islam is attacking, the liberal values, the sexual freedoms, LGBTQ plus rights, and so on. The same goes, maybe not so much emphasizing this LGBTQ and plus rights, but Marine Le Pen is always emphasizing that the values of republic, of secular France, of the Enlightenment, and so on, is in danger because of Muslims. So they are basically not, these let's say clerical nationalists that we are having, for example, in Poland, or in Serbia, or in the Balkans, or and some other countries, or in the countries like, for example, somewhere between those two radical, let's say, opposition, I would say, is the Germany to some degree, and Austria, that are, because there are Christian democratic parties So they are mixing this, with cultural and these religious narratives, and as well the European narrative of, endangered, that Muslims are posing the danger to the European values. Now, having said all of this, I would like to also the Professor Salman Saeed from University of Leeds and Amin Assadas, they have done the very interesting research in 2017 or 2018, and they it's Islamophobia kit, and they tried to they have done this research in various countries in Europe, and they presented this. I don't know if you can see, but is it readable? But I hope it is. I will go one by one. But so they identified 10 dominant narratives of Islamophobia, and they gave examples. Of course, they collected these narratives from different European countries. And they exposed, for example, here this is Belgium, Portugal, United Kingdom, Greece, Hungary, France, Germany, and for example, and we will see that the narratives are, or let's say, these 10 narratives are present more or less in all the countries that they treated in their research, but there are some differences as well. So, for example, the first one is a threat to security that Muslims are seeing as some kind of through this Islamic radicalism, Muslim terrorists, and so on and so on. And you see, these are the case study examples. For example, in Belgium, they are concerned about the radicalization of Muslims. As you know, for example, that in Belgium, there was a very high number of those who left for Syria from Belgium to fight in Syria. Then, for example, in Portugal, Muslims use public funds to promote Islamic fundamentalism. In Greece, Muslims will provide the manpower for and organize terrorist attacks in Greece. Muslims and extremism in UK, Muslim as a security threat in UK, and so on. Now, beside the threat security, which is always, present in the narrative, is the question of assimilation, or let's say integration, which I find definitely highly problematic, especially the term integration. You see, for example, in Germany, non-integrated character or unwilling to integrate. This is also in the 2017, the Luis Hernandez Aguilar, in his research also confirmed that he has done empirical research, and he also confirmed this about Germany, that a lot of Germans think that Muslims in Germany, concretely Turks in Germany, are not willing or not willing to integrate, or not integrated character, or unwilling to integrate. You see, Portugal is similar, unassimilable. The Greece also, they see the social problem with social and cultural cohesion. Then we have this disloyalty and threat to internal democracy in United Kingdom. And this is also important to emphasize that this thing is also connected to the what is, we will come a little bit later, to this ontological diversity, what again this Hernandez saw in his research in Germany. Then demographic threat and proselytization. This is what I already said. It's invasion of Muslims and Islamization of the country in Germany. Brussels is turning into a Muslim city, and so on and so on. Now we have, for example, then theocracy, and now we're coming to this, the values, or let's say the identity things, like theocracy Islamic parallel societies. Islam does not rely on democracy and the rule of law. Muslims incompatibility with the rest of or let's say the incompatibility with the secular state. Then threat to the identity, local traditions, serves as instruments of leftists to attack the Greek cultural and national foundation. This is, for example, interesting in Greece. Islamization as destruction of culture in Hungary. Islam as a threat to European Christians. So as this is now what I mentioned, that we are witnessing these differences, like, for example, in Hungary, these kind of, threat to the Christian identity is occurring. And in the French national identity, for example, when you see, and in some research, they show that, for example, Marine Le Pen is constantly quoting the national French identity, national values with secularism and with, the legalité, fraternité, and the French values, legalité. So this is what we have in the Hungary. This research didn't conduct, haven't been conducted in the Poland, but the situation there is quite similar. Like in Hungary, they always emphasizing this Christian identity of the country, and as well in the Balkans, definitely. For example, in Serbia and some other countries, Bulgaria, and so on. Then always, again, this gender inequality is present, the stance of Islam toward the women, and also in that we can see that, especially in Germany, again, they were seeing the problem again about the stance of the Muslims toward the gay rights and homophobia, that the Muslims are inherently homophobic and so on. And this is what I said, the ontological diversity, that in Germany, again, ontological distinction from non-Muslim nationals population. Islam does not allow freedom of speech, Islam, and so on. Muslims will help diffuse a culture of disrespect towards human rights. Islam is contrary to Britishness, fundamental British values, and so on. And in the end, we have to more incomplete citizenship and homophobia. Incomplete citizenship, this is like most do not have their place in the local context. Muslims should not come to and become visible in Hungary. Muslims illegitimate and not fully French. But in France and Belgium, Islam belonging is a prior identity marker. Now, having said all of this, or let's say presented all of these narratives, we have to be, and this is from where I started, if we see, or let's say if you look on all of these narratives, various narratives, and as I said in the beginning, there are quite differences. And especially, as I said in the beginning, because of this Christian, or let's say this ethnocultural and this civic identity. But in the end of the day, they all of them, they're presenting, and what is common, and this is what Irfan Ahmad is arguing in his article, the thing what is in common of all of these actors and players is that, this what is he calling domophilia, or love toward the country or the nation. So in that sense, he's saying that, all of these different types of these countries, they are identifying, or let's say their particular culture with their national identity, and then that the Muslims who are present there are challenging their national identity or their national values and cultural values. So in that sense, we can, I would conclude that this is, that Irfan Ahmad there is right when he's saying that the only one, the most important, common thing between these different groups is this, laughter or the national, let's say, cultural identity. And this is, also connected to the thing that, occurred during the already the 70s, when the new right was emerged in Europe, and the new right in that moment, it put the heavy emphasis on the Kulturkampf, or let's say this clash of cultural values, and this became, and this became some kind of a bridge between different opposition, or let's say opposite, or let's say different narratives for different players, because they agreed upon, or let's say they came around this idea of Kulturkampf, or let's say this clash of civilization, or let's say clash of different cultures. Now I'm definitely eager, or let's say keen, if you are for it, that we leave this as some kind of discussion later, that we discuss, especially because I'm coming from the Islamic studies, because I have a little bit specific maybe view about this. Is there some kind of a truth there about this, let's say, possible Kulturkampf, or let's say diversity, or let's say the differences in the culture? Because, I would argue, or I would say that some of the differences in worldviews and cultures do exist. But the question is how we are solving these differences, okay? So I think that, this is let's say, for me, the most crucial question is how we are dealing with these differences, and not if the differences exist. Because, and now what we are seeing in the last, especially when the war on terror started, this global war on terror thing, and this, CV, counter-violent extremism industry, and so on, that is taking place that took place, or is taking place still in the last 10, 15 years in Europe and in Western world, or let's say United States, Canada, and so on. They are, trying to completely, how to say, completely change, or let's say to influence as much as they can the Muslims in Europe, and to try to produce some kind of a new, let's say, Islams. And in Germany, for example, you have a scholar, his name is Bassam Tibi, who is working on this concept of Europe Islam. This is completely some kind of a secularized Islam, a whitewashed, or let's say, and stripped from many of the very important aspects of the Islamic teaching. What the Islamic faith is what the Muslims are believing. Or let's say some normative Islamic values. The same goes with we can say for the United States, where we have very, very, very also active, proactive, let's say, non-government organizations who are dealing with the U.S. administration and getting fundings from the U.S. government administration, like, for example, RAND, who in 2003 they published this is not a paper, this is some kind of I don't know, some proposition, what should be done with Muslims. The title of this paper is Civic Democratic Islam, and it is published in 2003. And then we have afterwards, a series of highly problematic projects, like, for example, Prevent in Great Britain, Then we have in Austria this Islamic Act in 2015, and then this possible documentation center for political Islam that was talking about in 2020, and so on and so on. So this is a mixture between, what are they doing? Or let's say in France, the reform of Islam, what is Macron is constantly referring to. He's even speaking globally, not only about the France, but he's speaking about and giving the statements that the Islam as such should be reformed, and also he's insisting on this nationalization of Islam, or let's say producing the French version of Islam, and also he's pushing forward this idea that imams and Islamic scholars are educated in France, and so on and so on, and that they don't go to the Muslim countries to educate themselves, and the goal is to produce some kind of French Islam, or that Islam is in line, or let's say is in line with the French values. So this is very interesting that when we come to the Balkans, is that the difference between the Balkans, let's say, or let's say the Western Europe is, first of all, the fundamental difference is that the Muslims in the Balkans are, let's say, autochthonous or let's say indigenous. They are indigenous population here, so they are not. You cannot go into this. You cannot use this card of integration or assimilation or something like this, because for example, the Bosniak Muslims or Albanian Muslims and so on, they are inhabitants of the Balkans as much as any other national group or religious group or anyone else here. So this is the most important, let's say, difference between the Western countries and the Balkans. And also, if we look at the statistics, what is interesting, because I'm doing this and writing about the Islamophobia report, for example, for Serbia, I was writing also for some other countries in the region in the past. And if you look at the statistics, for example, in Serbia, or let's say now we had some incidents in Montenegro, but basically, you don't have these high numbers of incidents of, attacking the mosques or attacking someone on the streets or some graffitis and this and that. But you have this, how to say, much more. And also what is important to emphasize in the Balkans, I forgot to say this overlap between the religious belonging and the national belonging. So the thing is that, in the Balkans, it is very important that, for example, the Serbs have very often they have problems, or let's say they are speaking, when they are talking negatively about those who are Muslims, they are talking in the ethnic, in ethnic sense. So they are talking negatively about Albanians, ethnic Albanians, or at this ethnic category, or against the Bosniaks. But of course, the basis for this in Serbia or in the Balkans is this, negative view of the Ottoman legacy and Ottoman past, and that those who accepted Islam, that they are betrayers, or let's say that they betrayed their, the faith of their ancestors, that they supported the occupiers, and so on and so on, the occupying force, because they see Ottoman Empire as some kind of invaders and that it was some kind of occupation that they were under. So in that sense, it is very difficult to differentiate, now today when you are talking about Islamophobia in the Balkans. Is it, are we talking about ethnic hatred, or we are talking about the the anti-Muslim hatred or Islamophobia, like it is, like we can find it in the West. And I would argue, that, that we cannot separate these two things when we are talking about the Balkans, because of this, what I said, that, that all of these ethnic groups are always seen as some kind of, in these religious terms, they are looked upon, as I said, somehow, always connected as the ultimate other, or let's say as some kind of foreign element in the Balkans, because they accepted Islam, or let's say became Muslims and so on. But again, of course, there are some counter arguments, that the Serbs and some other groups here, ethnic groups in the region, that they didn't have problems with the Muslims as such, but that they started to have problems with the Muslims, those Muslims, in that moment when they decided to became, or let's say to establish their own nation states, or let's say nation groups. So these are some of my preliminary now. I don't want I would like to also dedicate, because I see that already is 2 o'clock. I don't know how much time we have, but I have a lot of other data and things that I would like to share with you. But I would like now, of course, to maybe open the floor maybe to discussion, or let's say to